Pretty much every single app uses data, so it shouldn't be a surprise that shared preferences is one of the most widely used packages in the Flutter ecosystem. The shared preferences package makes it easy to store simple data using a device's local storage. In this video, we'll cover everything you need to know about this essential Flutter package. By the end of this video, you'll have the confidence and knowledge to take full advantage of the shared preferences package. All right, let's jump in. When it comes to storing data for your app, there are lots of options, but all of them fall into two categories: on-device or server-based. The shared preferences package is an on-device or local storage option and is a type of key value storage. Of all the storage solutions listed here, this is by far the simplest. Shared preferences supports 5 data types. These are very common in Flutter and Dart. In Dart, placing data in a variable of one of these types will save it temporarily. However, by using the shared preferences package, we can save this data permanently. Shared preferences uses local storage from each of the platforms supported by Flutter and serves as an abstraction layer. This is just a fancy way of saying that we don't need to write separate code to work with each of the platforms. Instead, shared preferences will take care of this for us. As mentioned, shared preferences is well suited for simple data types. This means it's great for storing values such as settings or user preferences that are intended to be accessed locally and don't need to be shared across devices. Shared preferences doesn't encrypt data, nor does it guarantee writes. So it isn't suitable for sensitive data such as passwords or mission-critical data like financial transactions. We'll start by creating a new Flutter app. To make this as simple as possible, I've shared the starting code on GitHub and included the link in the video description. From the GitHub repo, I'll copy the contents of main.dart and replace the main.dart file in our newly created project. Next, we'll run the project in an emulator. This project will contain minimal UI since we'll be focusing on setup and reading and writing data. Let's take a quick look at the starting project. We have a stateful widget named Basic Prefs Apps, which contains the only screen in this app. It does need to be a stateful widget because we will be using the initState and setState methods that are only available to stateful widgets. More on this shortly. Inside the Basic Prefs widget, we have the Material app and Scaffold widgets, which is standard in most Flutter projects. Finally, inside the Column widget are a couple of text widgets. Right now, these are hard-coded with static text, but we'll soon change this to render the text we'll store using shared preferences. The app we'll be building is quite simple. We'll save the name of our favorite food using shared preferences, and then retrieve it and render it in a text widget. Okay, so our app is up and running. The first thing we'll do is install the shared preferences package. Next, we'll import the package into the main.dart file. We need a place to store our shared preferences, so let's create a field named prefs. There's a question mark in the type annotation because we're declaring a value, but leaving it uninitialized for now. And since this field is private, meaning it won't be used outside of the class, we'll add an underscore before prefs. Next, we'll define a method named initPrefs. Inside this method, we'll retrieve an instance of shared preferences and assign it to the prefs field we just created. This method won't return a value, so we'll use the void return type. We'll include the async and await keywords in order to run the get instance method asynchronously. It's definitely an oversimplification, but this basically means there could be a delay between the request and the response. So get instance will continue executing in the background without blocking the rest of the program. Now that we've defined the prefs field, we have a place to store our data. We'll create a method named setPrefs and save the data using prefs.setString, which will accept a key and a value. The key identifies the piece of data that is being stored, almost like a variable name, and the value is the data itself. Since the setString method is simply writing to shared preferences, we won't see any changes in the UI once it's been called. So instead, we'll log a message to the console to know that the method was executed. Shared preferences supports 5 different data types. Each of these types has its own set method that accepts a key and a value. Here's a list of the set methods available and an example call for each. So the setPrefs method looks good, but it's not being executed anywhere. We can fix this by calling setprefs from the initprefs method. Similarly, initprefs is not being called either. In order for everything to work properly, we need to make sure that initprefs is executed before the build function is called and the widget tree is rendered. In Flutter, stateful widgets provide an init state method for this exact purpose. You can use it for initial setup and state initialization. This method is called only once when the state object is created. This means that the init state method won't be executed when a hot reload is performed. However, it will be executed if the app is restarted. To add the init state method to our app, we start with the @override annotation. Then we define the method itself. Inside the body, we need to include super.initState so that we can take advantage of the base initialization logic provided by the parent state class. After super.initState, we can call initprefs. Okay, let's try running our app. If we do a hot reload, the build method is executed, however, initState does not run. We know this because we didn't see the print message we included in setprefs. Remember, initState only runs when the app is started or restarted. Now let's do a restart. This time we see the message in the console. So a quick recap of what just happened, because this is super important. When we start or restart our app, initState will be called, which in turn calls initprefs. Inside initprefs, we get an instance of shared preferences and save it to the prefs field. And finally, we call setprefs, which will save the value of favorite foods to shared preferences. Now it's time to retrieve the value we've stored and render it in the UI. We can do this by creating a getPrefs method. This will be very similar to the setPrefs method we created. However, instead of using setString, we'll use getString. With getString, we only need to provide the key name of the value we'd like to retrieve. Since it's possible that the getString function call might return null, we need to use the null coalescing operator to specify a different value just in case. Finally, we need to store the retrieved value in a variable. Shared preferences has 5 get methods, one for each data type. The following visual shows the method and example for each type. Once again, we'll log a print message to the console. VS Code is giving us an error because we haven't declared the favorite food variable. We can easily fix this by declaring a string named favorite food and assigning it a value of an empty string. Currently, the text widget where our favorite food will be displayed is hard-coded. To display a dynamic value, we'll swap out the string favorite food goes here with the favorite food variable. Right now, the getPrefs method is retrieving the value we'd like to display. However, in order for the value to be shown in the UI, we need to wrap our call to getString with the setState method. By doing so, we ensure that the widget tree is refreshed when the value of favorite food is updated. Similar to setprefs, we need to call getPrefs from within the initprefs method. I'll also comment out setprefs since we've already executed it and don't need to run it again. So when we save main.dart, a hot reload is triggered and the contents of the text widget are changed to a blank value because we initialized favorite food as an empty string. However, when we perform a restart, the getPrefs method is called and we retrieve the value of favorite food from shared preferences. Since we wrapped the getString function call with setState, the UI is updated when this value is assigned to the favorite food variable. To delete data from shared preferences, we can use the remove function. We'll create a removePrefs method and call prefs.remove and pass a key as an argument. Unlike set and get, which have separate functions for each data type, such as getString and getInt, there's only one remove function and it can be used to clear values of any type. To test this out, we'll add removePrefs to the initprefs method and then comment the other functions out, so only removePrefs runs when we restart. After restarting the app, we can see in the console that the removePrefs method has been called. Since getPrefs is commented out, the favorite food variable reverts back to its default blank value. Now, let's comment removePrefs and run getPrefs. Because we've cleared the value from shared preferences, no value is returned, and null is instead substituted as a default value. This means we've successfully cleared the value from shared preferences. So we're almost done. But before we wrap this video up, I wanted to let you know that I've shared sample code which demonstrates how to work with the remaining data types that we didn't cover. You can find the link to this code in the video description. Well, that's it for this video. Happy coding, and I'll see you next time.